We have a new mythical Zoan fruit. Well, sort of. Yes, I'm afraid this video is yet another spoiler for anime watchers. Good luck avoiding it, but here's your warning anyway, because this is a thing that has changed One Piece forever. Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and this is probably the first time I've said that something has changed One Piece forever and actually meant it. Because as it turns out, our MC is no ordinary goofy rubber lad, and he is in fact a mythical goofy rubber lad. There's a big difference between the two, and we've got a whole Mark Vice to discuss in regards to these series changing abilities, as well as the fact that did you know that Luffy has actually been using these powers the entire time? None of us noticed because, I don't know, why would we? But Nika has been active a lot longer than we thought. Also, here is my dog, and he'll get a pat for every person who subscribes to this channel as a result of this video, so don't leave this good boy hanging. It would be poor form. And yes, that is a pun. And furthermore, this video is sponsored by Genshin Impact, the phenomenal open world RPG where players can climb, swim, and glide their way across this beautiful world with stunningly designed characters that each have control over one of 7 different elements. In the newest update 2.6, Zephyr of the Violent Garden, players will now be able to explore a whole new area known as the Chasm, along with a funky gadget called the Lumenstone Adjuvant to light their way. This update also brings with it the new character of Kamisato Ayato, who may look quite low profile and graceful, but he is not to be underestimated. And you'll get to follow his story quest as Ayato discovers something deeply disturbing lurking beneath the surface of this happy time. Meanwhile, as a returning character, we have the Bard Venti, who wields the powers of language, poetry, and being able to beat the utter crap out of anyone who interrupts said language and poetry. And personally, I think that Genshin Impact is one of the most gloriously designed games on the market. The only issue I often run into is stopping to stare at the beauty of this world instead of, actually playing the game. But thanks again to Genshin Impact for sponsoring this video, and you can use my link in the description below to get Genshin Impact on your devices right now. But now, important things. So Luffy's ability is officially the Hito Hito no Mi Model Nika, which is interesting for about a gazillion different reasons, but the one I want to begin with is that it's actually one of the only devil fruits in the entire series with a power that's not actually based on something from reality. I mean, I use the term reality quite loosely, particularly around mythical Zoans, because you can't exactly wander outside and find a 9-tailed fox scurrying around in your bins, probably looking for some kind of, I don't know, fox-based meal. What do foxes eat? So according to the internet, the more correct question to ask is, what don't foxes eat? Omnivorous little fur sacks? In any case, when it comes to mythical Zoans, they have some basis in our world, whether they be phoenixes, dragons, or even big ol' Buddhas. However, Nika is an entirely new creation for the One Piece world, so I guess you could call him fiction within fiction. And to the best of my knowledge, this sort of power has only ever happened once before, and it was with Foxy. Of all people, it was Foxy. Foxy's devil fruit allowed him to create non-existent photons to slow things down. And I actually think that Foxy is a good comparison to the powers of Nika, because both of them are complete cartoonish clowns. But this is quite possibly the most powerful devil fruit in the entire series, and I know it's very early days and I maybe shouldn't be saying that, but it is undeniably absurd, even by our undeniably absurd standards that we already have. The craziest thing about this fruit so far is that it seems to have the ability to warp reality as we know it. And I guess technically all devil fruits have that ability to some degree, but Luffy can perform acts on a scale that no other devil fruit is currently capable of. Luffy can manipulate his own body, he can warp his opponent's bodies, and he can even transform the environment around him. Generally, devil fruits can only do one of those things that I just said, which makes Luffy awfully scarily special now, because whatever the true nature of this ability is, it's especially dangerous in the hands of someone like Luffy. Actually, in this case, the hands, they're not the important part. They will just punch fight as per usual. But the really alarming aspect is what happens when this Nika fruit is combined with Luffy's mind brain. Throughout the entire story thing, Luffy has been portrayed as a character who thinks like absolutely nobody else in this world. He has the imagination of a child. And even before he became a practical literal god, he was still unconstrained by the rules of conventional logic. One of the best examples will always be early on in Baratie when Don Krieg, put on his spike cloak and he was all like, ho 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 ho, I the big Krieg am invincible because of many spike on my body. And then Luffy was just like, what's a spike? And then proceeded to punch him in his 42-year-old man face regardless. However, after awakening his devil fruit, the scenario would play out more like Luffy saying, spikes? What spikes? And then we cut to Krieg and he's like covered in, I don't know, floppy green dildos or something, which goes on to make everyone at Baratie laugh. And then Luffy says, that's all folks, which sounds ridiculous, yes, but at the same time, I honestly don't think it's any more ridiculous than what we saw in 1044. Luffy's imagination is actually the key to making this fruit work. If you gave these kind of powers to someone more logical, like say Law, then this fruit would never awaken because he's far too concerned with the rules of reality, not having a sense of humor, and his vendetta against bread. But Luffy has never lived in reality, and now he actually has the power to make the world in his own rubbery image, which I suppose is very befitting of a god. However, what I've come to question most about this whole mythical Zoan revelation is the idea that Luffy may have actually been using these powers all along. And stay with me here, because this devil fruit provides a logical explanation for every illogical thing that has ever happened to, because of, and even around Luffy. And immediately I was taken back to Marineford, specifically to Drakekill Mihawk, because he's cool and has monkeys, and I like that, but also because of his infamous monologue when he drew his blade against Luffy. Now, how will fate deal with you, this heaven-sent boy? Will his life end here, or will he escape this black blade? And just firstly, the words heaven sent now have entirely new meaning. Now that Luffy has the powers of a deity, this line makes me think that Mihawk might have known a bit more about Luffy than even we knew about Luffy at the time. And honestly, this thought makes more sense than the entire United States Mint, which is a lot. But it's because Shanks almost certainly knew the truth of Luffy's fruit. And given that Shanks is best frenemies with Mihawk, it's one of those secrets that you could see Shanks divulging after a night of raucous drinking and bush pissing. But of course that's not it, because Mihawk continues his monologue. It's not his powers or techniques. He possesses some quality that makes people want to help him. And in these waters, that is the most formidable power of all. Some quality, eh? Well, traditionally the fanbase has always labeled this quality as Luffy's raw charisma. But now I think it's worth questioning that. Has Luffy had access to a form of the Nika power all along? Have all of these natural allies been the result of Luffy's innate ability to make people smile and just bring his desires into reality? But on a much less profound level, it also provides a logical explanation to every bizarre Luffy gag in the series. For example, the idea that all Luffy needs to do to recover energy is eat hunks and hunks of meat. That is an incredibly surreal aspect of One Piece that never really gets acknowledged, because we accept that this series is at least 1/3 pure comedy. So you've really got to suspend your disbelief during those times. And another great example would be stuff like Luffy being able to regrow his teeth simply by drinking milk. It even takes me all the way back to Alabasta, when Luffy was fighting Crocodile at the palace, and we first met his still most fearsome transformation to this day, Water Luffy. This is one of my favorite comic moments in the series, because immediately after he drinks all of the water, Luffy's stomach starts leaking because of the wound that Crocodile gave him. This whole scene plays out like a classic Saturday morning cartoon, and it even makes Robin laugh because she says, and I quote, "Ha ha ha ha." And this right here is a perfect example of Luffy acting extremely appropriately within the intended powers of his mythical Zoan. And by the way, calling Luffy a mythical Zoan user will never not be weird. One Piece will end and I still won't be used to it. I mean, come on, we now live in a world where these two characters use the exact same type of devil fruit. Not just Zoans either, but Hitos. This is wild. But Luffy here had the ability to make Robin laugh, and I think that is a lot more important than it sounds, particularly once we learn more about her and how absurdly miserable Robin's life had been up until this point. In fact, the last words Robin was given from Saul were to find friends who will protect her, and when things become too unbearable, to laugh. Like this. But with that in mind, how incredible is it that Luffy was able to make Robin genuinely laugh? And yeah, it was a dumb gag at the time which made us laugh, but of course it's now been revealed that this was Luffy's canon in-world supernatural ability all along. Sometimes I kind of hate just how perfectly everything in this series ties together. I mean, even Saul's laugh, Data Shishishi, actually contains Luffy's entire laugh, which is just Shishishi. So Saul was telling Robin to find friends and laugh, Data Shishishi, and even gave her a clue as to the exact laugh that she was looking for. I mean, I guess that or Gecko Moria, whose laugh is Kishishishishi. And that definitely would have been Robin's dark timeline ending. To bring things back to Nika though, let's get a bit more into the punch fighting now, because our Luffy boy has the ability to command fire in his various red attacks. Ever since the very first Red Hawk of the series, this has been a very puzzling feature of Luffy, because the fire isn't used for comedy. It's conjured for very serious business attacks, however its existence is still quite absurd in nature. Narratively it isn't, because it's obviously a beautiful homage to Ace. Kind of like the brothers coming together together and combining their strength powers to overcome various opponents. Like a flamingo, a fish, and another fish, but much more fatter. And seriously, forget all of the Lunarian theories about Luffy, because if Oda really wanted to, this Nika Devil Fruit just explains everything. Luffy may be able to create flame simply because that's what he wants to do. He has that connection to Ace, and the sheer strength of that bond resulted in a sort of Nika power leak. All of a sudden being able to conjure flames from rubber, which traditionally is a thing that we don't do. Before I get carried away, I want to ask one question. And that question is, rubber? Which I did say with a question mark. What I still have yet to understand is why this mythical Zoan fruit, containing all of the powers of this lol-inducing sun god, seem to manifest themselves as basic rubber. I mean, I guess it's fun, and rubber is involved in the majority of life's fun activities, you know, like sports ball or jumping castles, and obviously protected intercourse. But I'm also very interested in the drawbacks of this fruit, because Oda is usually very good at implementing balance to his various wacky powers. Stuff like how Law can do just about anything in his private rooms, but it ends up costing him a lot of stamina and even life force, depending on the task at hand. Mythical Zoans are a bit tricky because they are by far the least balanced fruits in this world. I mean, I think the closest we've come to a drawback is Marco going, "Oh no, I can't heal other people as good as I'd like, but it's still pretty good, so I'm not complaining." Now everybody take a bite out of my delicious, juicy pineapple head. Something that might be quite interesting to explore though is the idea that Nika's powers may have a direct correlation to the quantity of smiles in any given area. By which I mean Luffy's completely abstract reality warping abilities become stronger as a result of the amount of laughter or happy units present, or maybe even vice versa. His powers are at their strongest when those in his surroundings are in their greatest state of despair, which on Wano could work both ways. Luffy could be super hyper powerful right now because all of its citizens live in this perpetual state of just raw, bleak despair, or he could have some amped up power because they've just had a rather delightful festival, and it's the only time of year when any of them are genuinely happy at all. It could even play on Kaido's desires as well, because you know the thing that makes him happiest right now is a hot, throbbing, gear-infused Luffy. So maybe in a weird way, Kaido's happiness could play a part in making his opponent stronger. Now what I'm also wondering is if Luffy has some sort of damage limitation. Because here's the thing, you know, when it comes to wacky cartoons, they can perform all of the violence they want, but nobody ever really gets hurt. You know, you never see Bugs Bunny sneaking up behind Elmer Fudd and just shanking him 83 times in the back because it's not rabbit season, it's stabbit season, you bold. But you never see that because that's not the kind of thing that tends to make people smile. So for all of the insanity that Luffy is able to conjure, I do wonder how ultimately effective it will be. Because to me, there is a pretty big disconnect with the idea of wacky cartoon performing this like legitimately brutal combat. And something else I've been wondering about is because Luffy is a Zoan now, it still sounds weird to say. But since he is a Zoan, does he have access to all of the classical forms, you know, full human, full beast, and the hybrid? Or in this case, human, god, and demigod. Because it may even be a case where in full cartoony god mode, Luffy can neither hurt nor be hurt. And we need to find ourselves with some sort of middle ground hybrid solution. And you know, this moment really epitomizes why I love One Piece so much. Because the most epic and anticipated power-up in all of shonen history turns out to be just some wacky cartoon. There is no other author who would have the guts to pull this kind of twist in a series as long-running and successful as One Piece, to completely recontextualize the main character and turn the most important fight in the series so far into a rather hilarious bout of jokes. It makes me smile, which on a meta level works far too well because now Luffy's devil fruitages, they're coming off the page and they are expanding into reality. This truly is the most ridiculous devil fruit that we've ever had and almost certainly will ever have. But it's not the most ridiculous YouTube video, that would be this one, which you should click because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.